Welcome along to Trip Notes. It's a New Zealand Herald podcast. It's brought to you by Intrepid Travel. And I am one of the co-hosts, Tim Roxburgh from News Talk ZB and also the Herald. And please welcome our other co-host, the deputy editor of Herald Travel. It's Stephanie Holmes.
Hi,
Stephanie,
Tim.
how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
Bit of a tan from your Fiji trip?
Yes, it was only 4 days, but I was doing my best to get the last little bit of sun before we really are into winter.
Nice
And our guest for this week's episode, Michelle Langstone, who's an actress who's been in things like 800 Words, The Almighty Johnsons, McLeod's Daughters, if you go back far enough, Go Girls, and West Side as well. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Because you're in the middle of filming West Side at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, we are. We've got 2 episodes left to finish and then we're done. So yeah, winding up at the end. Yeah.
So you probably haven't done much travelling lately? You've been
No,
too busy?
I haven't actually. I haven't been anywhere, but I'm planning a trip to Vietnam next month.
Oh,
so,
how exciting.
Yeah, really excited.
Have
the
you
planning
been...
bit is my favourite bit. Just like all
fun.
the investigation that you do online, all the figuring out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Oh, wow. How long are you going for?
I'm only going for 10 days because that's as long as my partner and I could get off work.
Okay.
But given that it's kind of close-ish, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, happening over the course of this episode, we're going to find out a little bit more about why you want to go to Vietnam, and we've got our section called What Travel Has Taught You. We'll also be looking at our travel bug section as well coming up, and this is a weekly column I write for the Herald. But we're going to look at group travel and whether that's something that's a good thing to do or not, because some people have complaints. I actually think it's amazing. And then later on, we'll have our destination of the week. And as far as fun facts go, apparently this city, which is home to 12 million people, has the most visited art museum in the world with over 10 million visitors annually. But more about that later on. Let's get to what travel has taught you. And Vietnam, why have you chosen to go there?
I have actually, and this is going to sound like a real cliche, but I find this quite often with travel. It's from when I was little growing up and I saw Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah.
And from that moment, I just wanted to go to Vietnam. And, you know, when you're that age, which I must have been 11 or 12, I didn't really know that much about it. But then we learned about it in school and learned about the history of the Vietnam War or the American War, depending on which point of view you have.
It's true. As soon as you go there, I mean, Stephanie, have you been to Vietnam?
I have not. No, I'm dying to go as well.
Yeah.
Mostly for the food for me, but...
I'm definitely I make a lot of my travel decisions based on food.
Yeah.
That's all I watch to eat.
it's
Everything forever.
Such a simple thing, though, isn't it? That when you go there and then you hear people talking about the American War and you're like, oh, yeah, of course they wouldn't call it the Vietnam War because they'd had so many other wars.
Yeah, we're spending 4 days in Ho Chi Minh City and I'm really looking forward to, or Saigon, depending on who calls it what. I'm really looking forward to going to all the museums and the war monuments and having a look at that. Yeah, it'd be great.
Amazing.
Yeah,
What
amazing
about
country.
going back? So what was the first trip you did kind of by yourself away from your family, the first time you went on holiday?
The first holiday I went on actually was a bit naughty. I kind of broke some rules. I was in my 3rd year at drama school and my best friend in my class and I were exhausted. It was right in the middle of winter. It was our final year and we thought we're just going to gap it. And we snuck like a few days off school either side of a term and went to Rarotonga and then sort of lied about it because this is terrible.
Wow.
Posthumously, I might have my degree taken off me.
This is
we
amazing.
just totally lied.
Rambunctious.
And then we went to Rarotonga and stayed in this like little hotel room right on the water, which was the Edgewater, which is still there now, but it's much bigger and much more developed, and stayed there for 7 or 8 days and just like lay in the water like starfish and just had this really great time. And I was 19, I think.
Wow.
And it was my first, I mean, I've been away with my family overseas a couple of times, but it was my first like trip that I took without any family members. And it was really great. I felt so liberated.
It is so
naughty.
exciting.
It's so exciting.
And it's nerve-wracking the first one you do. Can you remember your first one?
Oh, yeah, I
overseas
don't
on
really
your
want
own?
to talk about it. I was young and stupid and went to an awful European island and just...
Which European island?
Mallorca, but I went to that place, Magaluf, that, you know, all the... You've seen those shows on TV, like Brits Abroad. Going,
yeah.
Yeah, I was that person in my younger days. I'm thankful that I've grown up a bit and I'm a bit classy now, I hope.
Was it awful? What was it like?
Well, I mean, I had the time of my life, but if you look back on it now, I was one of those awful British tourists that, you know, just drank all night and slept by the pool all day. I shouldn't be saying this.
No, but some of those stereotypes, they're actually so much fun. Like just in Fiji, that there was a sign saying you're not allowed to put your towel on the deck chair and reserve the deck chair.
Oh, yeah, people do.
And I thought, well, but how are the German tourists going to cope with this? Because that's the great
Let's
stereotype of.
Let's not be mean to our German friends. Come on, we don't want to
I used to
get
go.
rid of any German listeners.
I used to go out with a German girl, and then I told her about the reputation for putting the towel down early to reserve the sun lounger, and she's like, "Yes, we do that, but how do you know?" I said, the world knows. Anyway, innocent stereotype. Well, when you think about the things you've learnt from travel, are there any things that kind of spring to mind? When you meet people and you kind of learn about the world and
like I've learnt never to go back to
Yeah,
Magaluf. So,
like that.
Yeah, I think I always learn something different wherever I go. It's usually a reflection back to myself of where I am in my life. Like I went overseas once. I went on this really great trip to Greece, and I went up to England and went up to Yorkshire Dales, and I had a really broken heart, like the most broken, destroyed heart you could imagine. I was just such a sad sack.
Oh, I'm
and I
sorry.
met up with my friends, and we went like to the Yorkshire Dales, and I met my other friend in Greece, and that trip reminded me from all the people that I met of just kind of how enormous the world was and how many people are in it. Like just being in Athens, that population, that the part of me that was really morose and I'll never meet anyone again, and all of those small feelings got expanded to embrace the size of the cities that I was in. And so it gave me this real energy and kind of lift of, oh, there are so many people in the world, it's going to be all right.
Yeah,
That's so good.
yeah,
That's such
beautifully
a nice way
explained.
to look at things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll transcribe that. I think. That was-
But yeah, it is. It
Inspirational
always
quotes.
lifts you outside of and gives you a
Yeah.
perspective, doesn't it, travel? I think that's one of the most valuable things. And it's
Yeah.
always really lovely to come home. Always.
Yeah.
I've never not just when the plane has landed gone, home. Never ever. It's so
Right.
lovely that we get to come home here.
What if it's rainy though?
No, see, I love rain. I'm into the rain. I really like bad weather. So if I land and it's raining, I'm like, yes, New Zealand, never change. It's just always,
Yeah.
it's always raining in Auckland.
Okay, well, we're talking about coming home. Let's move to the Travel Bugs section. So the weekly Travel Bugs column, and as I say in the column, it's a weekly ode to the joys of moaning about your holiday. and so we thought this week we'd talk about group travel. And one of the columns I've written about this was I mean, I love group travel, but I in the past have had kind of post-tour group depression that say if you've been doing like 15 days, you mentioned Vietnam, I did 15 days years ago from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon. And at the end of that, like these people were your best friends. And then that first meal you have on your own, like afterwards, it's just like, oh my gosh, where are my mates? Like it's such a
I think
downer.
you've been lucky though, because I've heard stories of some people going on a group trip and they hated everybody, but there's always one person. Like I did one in January and it was amazing. It was in Sri Lanka and cycling with our lovely sponsors Intrepid actually, and I just had such a great time. But there was one woman in the group and she was awful. I've never met a woman more awful than this woman. And everybody really struggled with her, but I kind of took something from it as well. You kind of learn that you don't need to be friends with everybody, that, you might be in a group with lots of different people, but you're not going to get on with everybody, and that's fine. And,
you learn tolerance.
Yeah.
I have to say, I've never, ever done a group trip.
Really?
And I never, ever will.
Why?
It is. My palms have gone damp.
Really?
It's my worst nightmare, being trapped with a bunch of people and not being able to do anything on my own volition, not being able to choose where I go, having to move around in a group like a little herd of sheep. And like, it's it's terrible. The only time I went on a boat ride once, which, like for an hour up and down a river. And that's the only time that there were people that I had to sort of be with in this group while this tour guide tour. I've never done it. I just can't stand it.
But I think there are, I understand that reaction, but I think there definitely are different. I think it's evolved quite a lot now.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
definitely think
and
that's
there are
true.
different types of group travel. So it's not. There are a lot of trips will they'll build in some time by yourself,
Yeah.
and you don't actually have to do everything. Like obviously it's a suggested itinerary, but it's your holiday. So and I think the good thing about them, the thing that I really like about them, is you've got someone looking after you if everything goes wrong. You kind of you might not be able to get somewhere, or your flight might get delayed, or it's why I think another thing is booking with a travel agent, because you've always got someone there that's going to help
back you up. Yeah.
And the knowledge that you get as well, I think, even if it's like, maybe you should start with like a day tour or something.
Yeah, maybe I'll do
having
that
a
when I'm
local guide,
overseas.
like the knowledge that you get from someone who it's their job and they know this place like the back of their hand, then, you know, you learn so much more than you would just wandering around by yourself.
I might actually, take that challenge and do that in Vietnam
Do
for
it.
a day, maybe. Yeah.
Especially food tours are great as well.
Well,
Me too. I'm like, great.
if you're going to Halong Bay,
Yeah.
you know, you could do kind of the overnight or maybe 2 nights,
Yeah.
and you get to stay in depending on the budget, you can stay in like these beautiful old Chinese junk boats and you're in the harbour. But you know, I think the thing with group tour, one of the things I love about it, other than that, chances are you will meet some like-minded people,
Yeah.
and they might be people from totally different backgrounds, different age groups even, you know, and Intrepid is not just like, say, under 30, and I did, not just because they're a wonderful sponsor, but I did a lot of tours with them over the years, and it was actually great that when you're, say, 22, there might be someone who's shock horror 38, and then you realise, wow, we can be great friends, you know. But I think we underestimate how much time we spend when you are travelling and making it up as you go on just how am I going to get from A to B. Like
Yeah.
you might spend a morning going, okay, so will we catch this bus or we're going to do this train? Which hotel will we stay at? You know,
It's taken away from you,
Yeah.
so you can just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
just occurred to me then that travel in groups is a really great option for people who are single or
Yeah.
people that used to be married or have never been married or have lost a partner or people
Or
who are
even
quite
if-
reluctant to go on their
yeah.
own. Like I've thought about big trips when I have gone by myself because I've wanted to or whatever. But you do have that slight trepidation of there's no one to fill the time with you or to share it with. It's just you, and you've got to be your own sort of memory book for it. So I
Yeah.
can see the real value in that actually now that we talk about it.
There
So
we go, look.
less clammy.
Yeah, slightly less. I mean, it's marginally clammy, but it's fine. I'm going to give it a hone.
Well, I mean, the other thing, you could do both. If you've got the time, you know, you could do like the 2-week tour or the 1-week tour or the 3-day tour,
Yeah.
and then your own thing as well.
I might just do a day.
Yeah.
Just be a
So-
day.
Half day, just like an hour,
A bit of mornings. Yeah.
and see how that goes.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's move to our destination of the week, and I believe both of you have been to this particular place. It's
have.
one of the most famous cities on earth. I am ashamed to say that somehow I haven't been there, but to further draw out this just incredible tease that
Get
the
on
most
with it.
visited art museum in the world, 10.2 million visits annually. Can you guess where we're talking about? A city of 12 million people and one of the most romantic places on earth. And our destination of the week is...
Paris.
Yeah.
All right, so why is it so special?
Oh, man. I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, particularly because of Notre Dame burning recently. And I found that footage so sad. Because Paris is so old, the architecture is so remarkable, the buildings are extraordinary, the people are amazing, the food is remarkable, everything about it functions beautifully as a city. The metro is like the greatest metro I've ever been on anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just, there's nowhere else like Paris where you can stand in a room and look at things that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, while outside on the street there's just the bustle of everything that is brand new and modern. Like that great dichotomy of old and new that exists all the time wherever you are. You might be sitting in a street that's, I don't know, 300 years old and cobbled, and you're, it's just amazing. It's so alive and so beautiful and easy to get around. Yeah.
What's your favourite thing to do there?
I've only
visit
been once, and I went for 6 weeks, and I chose to go for a long period of time because I didn't want to be like a tourist. I wanted to have days where I could sleep in.
Did you do a group tour or what was it?
Yeah, a group tour with my own mind, which is quite busy. It meant that I could sleep in and not feel guilty, and I could just if I wanted to have a day in bed and watch French TV, I could. If I wanted, the only thing I did that day was to go down to the boulangerie and get my lunch, and then that's what I did. But then I would have days where I go and have heaps of energy to explore. My favourite place there is the Centre Pompidou, which is houses the Museum of Modern Art. It is just the most remarkable building. Like, oh God, it's so cool. Everything about it is so cool. And the art curation is just extraordinary. It's just amazing. I love the Pompidou. It's just the best.
And the Louvre? This is the most visited.
I never went there
No.
because it just put me off the amount of people that would be in there, and kind of both the times I've been, I've only had a couple of days to spend there. And my favourite thing to do in a city is just to walk around and be outside and just look at the architecture. And Paris is so magical, just so beautiful.
Yeah, there's so much
that I
to see on
didn't want
foot.
to be. I kind of figured, yes, it's going to be amazing going to the Louvre, of course, but I just wanted to take in as much as possible. And to go there, you kind of need a whole day.
You need a lot of time. Yeah. I did a half a day. I have to be honest, I was really challenged by the Louvre.
Right.
It was so crowded. The classic, every photo I took was just a photo of other people's hands taking a photo. You couldn't really get close to the art, apart from the sculptures, like their Rodin garden. where you can just get really, really close to all of the colossal works. That's really incredible. And the building itself is really amazing, but it's just, you just don't get time to really see things. You are always in a space with literally hundreds of people. It's never empty. There's never a quiet day.
So practically speaking, if you're going to Paris and say, you're not rolling in cash, is it possible to have a great time in Paris and not spend a fortune?
I think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just walk around and you
eat crepes everywhere that you can. Eat every single
just buy
kind
bread
of crepe.
and cheese, cheese in Paris.
Yeah, one of the
best
nicest
thing ever.
It's just going down the road and getting fresh bread and getting cheese and going
Yeah.
and sitting in a park like Cité Universitaire, which is established in 1925. It's the huge, beautiful grounds. It's amazing to sit there and have a picnic. It doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Apart from how much it costs you to get there on the metro.
Yeah.
And a good thing to do, I think, as well, which seems a little bit cheesy, but if you buy one of those hop on, hop off bus tour tickets, that's one of my top tips for travel. The first day I'm somewhere new, if they have one, I get on a hop on, hop off bus because you get to see all the highlights of the city, and then for the rest of your trip, you can kind of go, oh, I saw that place, I want to go back there. It gets your bearings in a city. So that's a great thing to do in Paris because just looking at the buildings, it's amazing.
And there are so many monuments that it's free to go into or that you pay a pittance to go into, like the Sacré-Cœur or somewhere in Montmartre, which is a really famous part of Paris, and you get the incredible views there. And so you just get extraordinary experiences for very little money at all. It's just, the energy
the Auckland hop on, hop off bus, it's
let's not talk about that one.
Well, it says that the top 14 attractions. I'm like,
but one of them is St. Luke's, so
well, I'm always like, you can find one more, like make it 15. The top 14. It's like, there must have been, okay, but one of them's St. Luke's.
Yeah, I'm not lying. I went on it with my mum when she was over from the UK, and we were driving around, and I think one of them was a primary school in Parnell as well or something. I don't know. Yeah,
That's not wow.
Yeah, I felt quite bad. I
mean, there are so many great things to see, but yeah,
St. Luke's isn't one of them.
Yeah,
let's
I mean, maybe
my top 14.
Maybe if it was 1993.
No offense, St. Luke's.
But that's unusual. Okay, so Paris is our destination of the week, and Stephanie, you would have written stories about Paris.
I have. Yeah, actually, one of my favourite things that I did in Paris was a cycle tour around the city.
Yeah.
So this was a group tour, but there were 6 of us, and we had a cycle guide, and we just whizzed around the city by bike, and it was just such a wonderful day.
Fun fact: my partner, used to be a cycle guide in Paris.
He
lived there for a year.
Is he French?
No, he's not.
Okay. This guy was French, but he loved New Zealand. He had New Zealand tattoos and.
So you know that story of how New Zealand apparently the sexiest accent in the world.
That's
which is just
I've got so much to say about that. We don't have enough time.
It's just not true. I mean, have we heard Karen wants her $20 back? If you haven't, anyway, look it up on YouTube because it's not very sexy. But the
French accent, come on,
surely that's number one, isn't it?
It's remarkable. Yeah. It's really remarkable.
Did you find when you were there? There's obviously this perception that, especially in Paris, that French people are rude to tourists. Did you find that when you were there?
I didn't, but I was thinking about this actually, and this is one of my main tips I could ever give anyone is wherever you go, always attempt the language. Attempt it as much as you can.
Yeah,
it's really good for you. It's really good for your brain. It's really respectful. And because I attempted my terrible French, which I think may be a good accent because I'm an actor and I'm hopefully have learned something to do with being able to listen. But no, everyone was incredibly kind to me.
Yeah.
Really welcoming and lovely and charming and engaged. The second that you speak, I really think language is so important. It's how we connect to each other. And if you make an effort in Paris, it is notorious for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As long as you make an effort. And
and they can see it. And even if it's terrible, that unites you as well because then you both just laugh at how useless you are. It's great. I have no shame with stuff like that. I'm always just giving it a hoon because I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Do you have any other top tips for Paris?
I would say, and I say this about everywhere, take the public transport as much as you can and walk. And the metro is, honestly, it's the dream of my life. I could just sit on those trains all day and go around marvelling at how well they work. And
did you ever get the man come on with the accordion and busk to you?
Oh, it's very powerful. Yeah. There's also you get off at stations and there are people singing in the middle of the night, opera, and the walls are just reverberating. It's just extraordinary.
It's true. It's actually a really good point. As you say, wherever you are,
take public transport.
Take that public transport.
Because it joins you with the collective kind of energy of a city and the people that live in it. You become part of the fabric of a day just like anybody else. Yeah. And then you're in and amongst the quality of the people in the life there. Yeah. You're not separate in a taxi or distance. You're involved, you're engaged.
It just popped into my head, like in India. I mean, there are a lot of, so many yarns, endless yarns about India and public transport and the trains. But where the guys who bring the coffee down the aisle in India, they deepen their voice so that you can hear it over the din. So you'll hear these guys going, coffee. And like the first time you hear it, like, this is so funny. But then you realize, like, amidst all the chatter, your ear can pick up a guy going, coffee.
You'd be really good at that job. You should
I
go
know.
work on there, yeah.
So if this doesn't work out, I'm going to sell
Have you
coffee.
considered doing that in this building? Just where I go, coffee,
Yeah.
coffee.
If you could just come around at 10 a.m., that would be great.
Coffee. It's a good idea. All right, that's all we've got time for.
Oh.
But thank you so much for coming by.
Oh, thank you very
thank
much for
you.
having me.
And
It's so nice to just talk about Paris.
Oh,
and-
Yeah.
It's so good
Yeah.
talking about travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's my favourite thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
So we'd love to have you back.
I would love to come back anytime.
And people can see you on TV.
On
West
West
Side
Side,
this
yes,
month.
coming this month, coming
Yeah.
very, very soon.
And keep an eye out for your byline as well, because you do lots of writing too.
I do. Yes,
Yeah. Okay. And you're on Instagram as
I am Michelle Langstone.
Yep.
That's my handle. Yep. So
Yep.
there'll be lots of pictures of my forthcoming trip to
Oh,
Vietnam.
I can't wait to
Yeah,
see them.
it'll be good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Great inspiration.
And do check out Stephanie as well. What are you on
Homes
Insta?
Stephanie. Yeah.
Excellent.
Very good.
Yeah.
And don't forget, go to nzherald.co.nz/travel. There's also the NZ Herald Facebook page, NZ Herald on Instagram as well, which is just NZH Travel. And you can subscribe to Trip Notes at all the major podcast apps. So there's Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and thanks once again to our wonderful sponsors, Intrepid, and their website is intrepidtravel.com. And that's another episode of Trip Notes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.